Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Natalie Candela. I am a hypnotherapist and a transformation coach, and on this channel I talk about personal transformation, hypnosis, and spiritual awakening. And so today I had a topic in mind that I wanted to share with you, but then I had a conversation with someone and I was asked a very specific question that I thought, why not? I'll just go ahead and address and answer that question. So this video is for you, Janice. So the question was, why the heck do we keep returning and returning and returning to Earth if you believe in reincarnation, when there are kind of greener pastures to be in, when there is home, when life on Earth is not fun, when things don't seem to be going well? Why do we need to keep coming back? So to address that question, I want to talk about two P's: perspective and purpose. When we talk about perspective, we need to understand that we have different perspectives in looking at everything. So there is a human perspective, which is us looking at our own life, understanding it as kind of a physical experience, understanding all the limitations, seeing it for what we understand it to be. But that's not the entire perspective. That's not all of reality. And some people believe that there is more to reality. Some people know for sure that there is more to reality, and some people don't believe it at all. They believe that this is all there is. So this reality is the only perspective that they can have. But let's just take for granted that there definitely is a greater reality. Then human perspective becomes just one of the ways that we can look at what's happening. And so then there is a spirit perspective, a soul perspective. Spirit being all there is, and soul being an individualized portion of spirit that becomes kind of our spirit identity. So it's that part of the creative source that becomes our own and that travels with us everywhere we go. So from the soul perspective, this reality is very different. And it sees that this experience on Earth as a very different experience. It interprets it very differently. It sees challenges very differently. So when we ask the question, why the heck do we need to keep coming back when it's clearly not fun? You have to ask yourself a question: which perspective are you looking at reality from? And of course, most likely, we all look at it from a human perspective. And I do agree. Life on Earth is by far not always fun. We have a ton of challenges that we deal with, from personal individual challenges to global challenges. But when we try to answer the question, why would we keep coming back, we have to acknowledge that that decision is not made from a human perspective. And here is how you can look at it. When we leave this body and when we leave this plane, the physical plane, and we return to our spirit form, we leave behind the human perspective. Now I want to kind of look at that a little bit to help you understand, how do they connect? Where does the human part go? So human personality, for example, me, I'm Natalie in this life, right? Well, I'm many other things, but let's call this personality Natalie. So when I return to the spirit form, what I expect will happen is that I will remember my entire identity as being as part of the creative source. Now, what will happen to Natalie? Well, right now, while I'm in this human form, for me, Natalie is almost all there is. Now, I'm also aware of my soul existence, but most of the time, Natalie is all I am. So right now, it kind of fills the entire space of awareness for me. But once I leave the body and return back to my spirit form, the percentage of awareness that is given to my personality as Natalie will begin to diminish, because I will remember myself as being much more than just this. Now, will Natalie completely disappear? There are people who have had near-death experiences that talk about completely leaving behind any sort of identity as a human and merging back into all there is. And I believe that we not only have the potential to do that, but we do that at some point. However, the personality of Natalie will not disappear as though it never existed. It will merge into the all of me. So our personalities become like pieces of the puzzle. You can't complete the whole puzzle without every single piece. If there is a piece missing, the puzzle won't give you a full picture. So the Natalie that is here will always be a part of my soul journey, but it will stop being all of it or most of it. It will sort of take its small place in the totality of my soul experience. So if you look at a perspective difference, when my soul will look at its journey and all the challenges it has had, it will see my Natalie journey as a very small part of its overall experience. And so the challenges that I have on a daily basis that seem insurmountable to me sometimes, overwhelming sometimes, difficult and dramatic sometimes, to my soul, they will be interesting experiences and no more than that. They will certainly be quite surmountable. So when we put it in the right perspective and understand from whose perspective the decision is made to keep returning, then we can understand that from a human perspective, it seems like a silly decision, almost sort of self-defeating decision. Why do we keep coming back to the things that are so difficult, so maybe even damaging to us emotionally, psychologically? Why do we keep doing it to ourselves? But if you shift and look at it from a soul perspective, it's a very different experience. Soul is making these decisions based on the understanding of the impact of each individual human experience on its own journey. So having understood kind of the difference in perspective, the next logical question is, well, then why is it making that decision? If it's that insignificant or significant, or from however it sees it from its perspective, why does it keep doing it? And that's where we come to the other P, the purpose. What is the purpose for the soul to keep entering into physical life and to have this experience? So this is a very important part of the question, because as perhaps insignificant as each human experiences in comparison to the soul journey. And I want to be careful about using the word insignificant here, because I'm only showing sort of the scale difference. You know, it's like this compared to this, but it's not insignificant in terms of meaning, because it is very significant, and that's the purpose for coming in. So the purpose for soul to enter into physical experience is to have an experience. That's all there is. There has been a spiritual view on physical life, human life, as sometimes as a punishment, sometimes as a lesson that you haven't learned, that you have to sort of keep drilling into yourself. And the way that it has been understood, I think, is somewhat negative, because we think about it as a child in school who hasn't learned his or her multiplication table, and so we keep saying, you're not getting up from this table until you learn the multiplication table. But that's not exactly what and how the soul sees it. Again, look at the perspective. It's not a human perspective on a lesson. So the spirit wants to experience life. It wants to understand life. It wants to understand what things are like. It wants to understand what is betrayal, what is sadness, what is joy, what is love, what is companionship. It wants to understand those things. And in order for it to understand it, it enters a portion of itself into a three-dimensional world where challenges will help it understand those concepts. Let's say a spirit wants to learn inner strength and be sort of a strong inner identity and remembering who it is. So it enters into a life experience and has a life where the person got swept along with outer circumstances, was not able to stand on his or her own 2 feet, was not able to say, look, this is who I am, this is how I'm going to live my life, and was kind of pushed and pulled around by people, by circumstances, and kind of lost him or herself. So when the soul the soul returns back into its full awareness and reviews the life that it just lived through that human, it might say, well, I really wanted to understand what it feels like to have that inner strength that holds you up no matter what happens around you. But I really wasn't able to experience that because things came up, circumstances came up, and I didn't have that experience. I want to go back and try it again. That's why we keep coming back. That's why. There's no other reason. We're not being punished because that person didn't learn to stand on their own 2 feet. We're not being chastised as you didn't learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. No, it's because the soul is looking at its experience and saying, I so wish to know what it's like to be strong enough on my own. But when I went through this experience as Bob, it didn't work out. I'm going to go back and try it again. And so it goes back and it becomes Julie. And Julie, again, is maybe feeling a little bit stronger in some circumstances, stands on her own 2 feet, but in others really still swept away and does things that are not good for her. So when Julie returns and remembers who she is, the soul again says, I got better at it. but I want to try it again because it didn't give me the full experience. I want to try it again. I'm going to go back and do it. That is the purpose of the soul, to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. We are love. The spirit is love. We're not being punished. We're not being taken advantage of. We're not being thrown to the wolves and kind of told, well, you're not significant enough to, for us to care about, so just go have your little miserable experience on earth. No, we are a beautiful expression of the Creator, and we come here to allow that part of us that's the Creator to really have a full experience of itself. And if you look at life from that perspective, then you might be able to understand why the soul keeps wanting to come back. Acknowledge the fact that from a human perspective, life can be quite difficult, but also allow for the possibility that when you are not in this human awareness, when you have an awareness that is quite more expansive, that you will see things differently and you will understand why it is such a privilege and so much fun for the soul to get back into this game and try it again. And as we try it again, we contribute to the experience of all creation. And all we are is creators. So it is really an enjoyable experience for the soul to do these things. And if we are not going to do them on earth, we're probably going to do them somewhere else, because you're not going to just sit there and be bored through all eternity, are you? So these are just things for you to think about and for all of us to ponder throughout our lives. So please drop a note, write to me in the comments below what you think about this. Let me know if there are other questions you'd like me to answer. I would love to respond to your questions. And please don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell so you can be notified of my future videos. Thank you so much for listening and watching today, and I will see you soon. Bye.